Hey, Jen, your borderline therapist. All right, so we're going to be talking about the two different types of trauma. Well, the two scales of trauma. So one trauma scale is the universal societal trauma scale. This one is all the things that you hear about on the news. Kidnapping, sex trafficking, car accidents, death, heart attacks. All of that is societal trauma. And what I mean by that is that it hits an 8 to 10 out of the societal scale. So 0 to 10 society scale. Something that hits on a 2 on society scale may hit the personal trauma scale at a higher number. So the first trauma scale is society's 0 to 10. The second trauma scale is your own trauma scale, 0 to 10. So even though my most traumatic moment, which would be a 10 on my scale, only hits a societal scale at a 1, doesn't mean that it impacts me or leaves a wound that is not a 10. So if we take multiple people's brains and ask them to think of their most traumatic memory or thought, and given there's lots of things that would go into this, but if we were to scan their brains at that moment, your brain doesn't understand the difference between my trauma and your trauma, just like it doesn't understand the difference of like a scab on this leg versus a scab on your leg. The brain responds to trauma at a level 10 on a personal scale every single time, even though it may be a 1 on society scale. So an example is, and people laugh at me all the time, one of my most traumatic moments is when my sister cut off all the hair on my Barbie dolls. I made it mean that she didn't like who I was, that I wasn't good enough, like you have to be changed, all these kind of things that I've worked through in therapy. For me, that was a 9 out of 10 on my trauma scale. And even other people would say I've had more trauma than that. But again, it's about the wound. That left such a wound in me that it became a 9 out of 10 trauma scale. If we were to scan my brain when I am going through that event, it would match your 9 out of 10 on your trauma scale because it doesn't matter about the event. It matters the wound. And then if we took it to society's trauma scale and matched it to a 9 out of 10 on a society scale, somebody getting kidnapped, found 10 years later, our brains would actually match if it's a 9 out of 10. And so we have to stop comparing trauma because it doesn't matter what is on society's 9 out of 10 scale. It matters what our brain wound is and how capable we are of healing it. So stop comparing trauma and just know that people have wounds that they're trying to heal.